Hi everyone, and welcome to our next lesson in our Readers term. So just before we start, just to remind you that if you want to pause the video because you need some more thinking time or because you need to complete the task, that is absolutely fine. Please pause it as many times as you need to. I would suggest though that you only pause it the first time, and then if you need to rewind, go back and rewatch it the second time, that's fine. But the first time, just watch it all the way through and pause it when you need to. Okay. I'd also remind you that if there are any questions I ask you, it'd be really good if you can say your answers back to me, just like we're in the classroom, because that helps us with our learning and helps us to keep those that new information in our head. So let's get started. So today we're going to be thinking about the sacred place for Jewish people. So to be successful, you'll be able to name the sacred place of Jewish people, so where they go to worship. You can describe the important artifacts, the important things in a synagogue. And you can explain why a synagogue, the sacred place, is important to them. So can you name it? Can you describe it, the things that are in there? And can you say why it's important? So let's start with our knowing more and remembering more. Question 1. So just true or false for this one. A church is a sacred place for Christians. True or false? Reminder that if you need to pause at any point, that's absolutely fine. Question 2. Which of these objects would you find at a church? A, is it the Quran? B, stained glass windows? Or C, challah bread? Write your answer down. And your challenge question, what religious ceremonies happen in a church? Now, there'll be more than one because we've got our plural suffix at the end there of ceremonies. So how many ceremonies can you think of that happen in a church? Pause it if you need some more time, but I'm going to move on to the answers now. So if you said true for question 1, well done. A church is a sacred place for Christians. That is true. In a church, you would find B, stained glass windows. And your challenge, here are 3 of them. I wonder if you thought of any more. So religious ceremonies that happen in the church: baptism, christening, and a wedding. If you named any more, well done. You are certainly working harder and your brains are on fire today. So here is our knowledge organizer. And you can see it's been circled up here in the green section that we are thinking about which place of worship is sacred for Jewish people. So in your first lesson, we looked at all of the different sacred places. So you should already have some information about what is special to Jewish people. And I know that in your last lesson, you looked at church, which is the sacred place where Christians play and worship God. I wonder if you can find the answer to this question by looking on this blue section. Which place of worship is sacred for Jewish people? Okay, we're going to find out as we move through our lesson. So this is just a recap for us, building on what we've learned already. So here we have a church, and this is where Christians come to worship. And we talked about the importance of the sign of the cross. And we also have on this side that's just come up a synagogue. This is where Jewish people come to worship and Jewish people feel safe here. And we have the Star of David. And underneath, we have a picture of a mosque, which is where Muslims come to worship. And we have a crescent moon and a star as their symbol. So last lesson, we looked at the church. Today, you can see it's just come up in red around it. We are going to be thinking about the synagogue. My turn, your turn. Synagogue. Good, well done, which is where Jewish people come to worship. So let's find out a little bit more about synagogues. Looking at these pictures, looking at these buildings, what do they have in common? What do you see that's the same? This might be a good time to pause the video. Okay, so well done for doing some careful looking. If we look at them, we can see that they look like they've got a dome shape. So these two have got a dome shape in the middle. You can see that. And it looks like we've got towers. We've got 1, 2 towers on this picture. 1, 2 towers on this picture. And this one has 2 towers. Did you spot anything else? So let's have a look at what it is like inside a Jewish synagogue. So this is just these are pictures from just one synagogue. What do you think it looks like? How could you describe this? Tell me some sentences to describe these pictures. Okay, well done. And thinking, is it the same as the church we saw last week? If it is, why? If it's not, why not? Okay, well done for sharing your answers. I think it looks a bit similar because when I look at this picture down here, we've got an aisle down the middle and we've got our rows of seats. And I know that a church has the same. And then it looks like we've got at the top here, which is where the priest would stand in a church and at the altar would do his service. So I wonder if it looks the same. Do you agree or do you disagree? Oh, I've spotted something that's different. On this picture, I can see the Star of David. In a church, what would we have instead of the symbol or Star of David? What would the sign be that we would see in a lot of places? Okay, so let's have a look at the features. This is going to be a good time for you to pause the video so you can remember this information and help you to learn it. So first we have a bimah, which is a raised platform where most of the service takes place. And the Torah, which is the religious book of the Jewish people, is readings happen here. Next, we've got the ark. And you can see here, oh look, it looks like an ark shape. The ark is a cupboard in which the Torah scrolls are kept. So the Torah, the book that is read at the bimah, when it's not being used, is kept away to keep it safe in the ark. And we have the Siddur, and this is the main prayer book. We have the Torah scrolls, and these contains the word of the Hebrew Bible. We have the eternal light, Ner Tamid. This hangs above the ark and is always burning to remind everyone that God is always with them. Oh, I wonder if we go back. Can you see it? Do you think it might be here, or do you think it might just be out of the picture at the top up here? So that's where the eternal light, the Ner Tamid, would be, just at the top, because this is the ark. And memorial boards. These are boards full of names, and each nameplate remembers someone who has died. So we will see these all over the place in a Jewish synagogue to remember those who are no longer with us. Okay, but what do they wear when they go to synagogue? So just like Christians might wear special clothes when they go to church. So the kippah, as you can see, this is what's called a skull cap. So it's not a hat that fits completely over the head. It just sits where your crown is, where that spirally bit is on the top of your head. And men must wear it at all times in the synagogue to show respect. And if we look at this bottom picture, the talit, and this is a prayer shawl, and you can see the white and blue, looks like a scarf around this man's neck. And this is traditionally worn by men during morning prayer, but women can wear it too. So why do people go to a Jewish synagogue? People go to the synagogue to worship, but also to study. Many synagogues are also community centres where local Jewish people can meet and take part in different activities and events. So it's not just somewhere to go and pray and to worship God, but also to come together as a community, as a group of people who believe the same things, and they can take part in different activities and events. A synagogue is a house of prayer where Jewish people can get together to feel closer to God and closer to each other. And the services are led by a rabbi or a worshipper. So in a church, you would have a priest or a vicar. In a synagogue, you would have a rabbi or a worshipper. Oh, so here's a big question for you. Definitely time to pause the video and do some big thinking. Do you think all synagogues are the same? Now, what's important here, year one, is you can say to me, why? So use our because sentences. So I think they're the same because, or I don't think they're the same because. Again, this might be a good time to pause the video. Okay, so well done. There were some really good ideas there. And I certainly think that they might be the same in that they all have, um, oops, these things in them. So they might have an arc, they might have a Torah, but do they all have an arc that looks the same? Do they all have the bimmer that looks just like that one? Do some of them might be smaller or bigger or might not have lights on them? It's a bit like churches, and the churches are all very different, so there might be differences with the Jewish synagogues as well. So your task is to circle, so you can draw a circle shape around the words, or you can write underneath or tick the ones that you think you would find in a synagogue. So if you think you would find a stained glass window in a synagogue, you can circle it or you can give it a tick. Or if you haven't got the sheet in front of you and you're doing it at home, you can write down the words of the ones that you think you would find in a synagogue. Now, I've got a bit of a challenge for you. If there are ones that you don't think you would find in a synagogue, where would you find them? So if you think that the Bible is not in a synagogue, where might you find a Bible? I wonder if you could answer those questions for me. So that's your first task. And then once you finish that one, your next task, your challenge is to match the word to its definition. Ner tamid. Now I'll help you out with this one. This one is the eternal light. So that one would go there. Okay. Can you match the rest of them to its definition? So if you have the sheet, use a ruler and draw your line. If you've got a ruler, that would be great. Or if you don't, you can write out the name and then next to it, you can do some really careful copying from the screen and write down the matching description. And that's where I'm going to leave you in your learning today, year one. But well done for listening so carefully. And I look forward to working with you next week.